Nu și, eu îți gata să mănânc pizdon pentru opinia asta, da? Let's ball with it. Well, as you can see with the title of this video, I am about to be roasted by the power of 1,000 suns for my opinions, but honestly I do not care anymore. Battlefield 6 is simply a rushed mess that honestly has defeated me and nearly basically made me quit this game entirely. Today I would like to finally do the coverage for Battlefield 6, which I promised you for quite some time ago, talking about the campaign, multiplayer, Battle-Royale, and of course the season updates, which are honestly quite disappointing, let me tell you that. So before I get absolutely destroyed for this intro, let's get into this. Hello everyone, Chris back again with you in Gaming Zone. The title is no clickbait, Battlefield 6 actually managed to defeat me. This game should have released in 2026, cause you can clearly tell this game is a rushed mess. Tons of bugs, tons of netcode issues, visibility issues, tons of quality of life improvements that were reported in Battlefield Labs simply missing from the retail game. It's simply just a disappointment. I'm going to be honest with you, in about 3 days my honeymoon period for the game simply vanished, and after 3 weeks of playing this in the launch state, I simply gave up on playing it, and honestly I have no desire to return to it anymore. I know it's a ramble of an old man yelling at clouds, some of you might believe it like this, but I honestly do care about Battlefield franchise, and it's very disappointing to see yet again a game which was very promising from the start, the first beta which was actually running very good, now be in absolute shambles even though it went through a labs, Battlefield CTE environment, because the state of the game which was at the launch is simply appalling, and to this day, even as of writing this video, it's December right now, even to this day the state of the game is very lackluster, having tons of netcode problems, still having visibility issues, the recoil still being questionable here and there, and of course other quality of life improvements that are simply missing from Battlefield 6. So, let's actually cover every single aspect of Battlefield 6 now that a couple of months have passed since the launch. And honestly, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything in this, cause it's been just a disappointing mess from the start, and it's still disappointing cause we've been rug-pulled from serious updates which are very important for Battlefield 6. So let's get into them. Let's start with the campaign first, cause I know not all of you are going to give much of a damn about this, but still it's an important part of Battlefield 6 cause it was advertised as a part of a package for the game, of course. I only have 3 words to describe the campaign for Battlefield 6. It's boring, it's forgettable, and it's garbage. That's how I can basically describe the campaign. It basically panders with Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 moments from the campaign, recalls basically the events from Battlefield 3, it's glazing of course the characters from there, and other events which happened there of course. The technical issues in the campaign is truly abhorrent, and you can clearly tell they wanted this one to be quickly dumped and forgotten about. Even when you finish the campaign, you simply got the button of just uninstall this so you can free up space for multiplayer and of course Battle-Royale. I honestly believe this campaign is actually worse than the worst stories I've seen in Battlefield V. Even though it has political pandering, I believe those are much better and much polished when it comes to overall the narrative compared to Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 you can clearly tell they had a couple of missions really ready from the get-go, but everything else just went tits up and they started doing random nonsense so they can have some timeline filled in the campaign. It's just not good. The campaign is simply forgettable, it's boring and has tons of technical issues. One mission is straight up being just made out of animations that can be seen in Unity engine, which is very tragic to see this. Campaign wise for Battlefield 6 it's simply a bust. Initially once I finished my gameplay on it, I was actually giving it a 6 out of 10. But after revisiting it a couple of, let's say, weeks later, honestly it's barely scratching a 3, it's honestly very forgettable, has tons of problems, and it's basically trying its best to kinda copy Modern Warfare in its vibe, and it fails miserably on that. So the campaign is simply a bust, it's very unfortunate. With the campaign out of the way, let's actually delve into the meat and potatoes of the package, which is the multiplayer. After all, everyone is simply waiting Battlefield for this instead of another campaign, cause the campaign is a one and done deal which you can afterwards uninstall and simply forget about. Multiplayer is disappointing. I'm going to be honest with you, I actually really enjoyed the first 3 days which I was playing Battlefield 6, I was really glazing it saying Battlefield is truly back, after being simply steamrolled by Battlefield V being yet absolutely trash, and of course 2042, which simply drained my soul and basically nearly made me quit this franchise entirely. Battlefield 6 was truly a breath of fresh air at launch, but then the issues started to slowly creep in. Of course, let's not forget about the exposure bug, which basically made nobody visible. The netcode has tons of problems, and the recoil bug, which was basically making weapons absolutely unusable after 25 meters. It's simply crazy how beta was actually more stable and more playable than the final product. The other maps, which of course were released with the full package, including of course Firestorm, Saints Quarter and others, honestly were not good. I believe DICE actually managed to choose the best maps so they can showcase them for the beta. Saints Quarter basically doesn't exist, it's only exclusive to small modes, and even when I played it, it was basically just an Iberian offensive, just downscaled and set between some buildings and some pagodas. Firestorm as well was basically unplayable because of the lighting issues, you couldn't see anything in front of you, same with Manhattan Bridge. Okay, now let's get into the actual issues that really made Battlefield 6 a bust for me personally. Of course, HDR bug, all of those issues can be fixed with patches cause it's not a big problem. But what the problem is really is the netcode being absolutely terrible. Even with 60Hz, even with all of those advancements for Frostbite engine, the netcode is still abysmal trash, it barely works, registers headshots, it barely registers body shots, you now die again behind walls, you now die to random bullshit that happens on the map, which is simply infuriating. It's appalling to play this game.
What?
The launch state also had the broken recoil, because it was a feature apparently by DICE. Yeah, much of a feature when you are firing your weapon, simply nothing registers, or you are being outgunned by an MP5 from 50 kilometers away while you are having a rifle, and because you move slightly, the recoil just goes tits up and goes wherever it likes. Vehicles are trash. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, vehicles are trash. They are basically tin cans and somehow they are worse than Battlefield V. Battlefield V were known for being quite a tin can. Battlefield 6 they are just straight up unplayable sometimes. You either have to basically camp in the spawn so you can actually get some kills, or you go outside of it and immediately get blasted by 3 RPGs and the vehicle is basically turned to ashes. APCs don't have any reactive armor, tanks are basically again glorified tin cans. If you go and start to fight to actually do something serious like Battlefield 4, you're absolutely hammered, there is no way you can survive much longer on that, and overall just the gameplay loop it's not really rewarding. You basically have to run away immediately once you start a conflict, and if you don't have any engineers helping you out trying to survive, you're basically out of luck. You're going to blow up like immediately once you jump into a vehicle. Basically the customization is absolutely gutted on this one. The anti-air is basically unusable unless you are just, attacking air vehicles respectively. With Battlefield 4 you can actually do 2 builds for anti-air vehicles. One of course actually focusing on air vehicles and taking them down as effectively as possible. But the second one was also actually fighting against infantry and sometimes light armored vehicles, cause you did have the option to do that. In Battlefield 6 unfortunately you cannot do this, it's only anti-air, and if you try to fight infantry against it, well, Godspeed Captain. With the anti-air rant over, let's talk about actually water vehicles basically missing from the game. Same thing with scout helicopters, they are also gone from this one. And of course they are basically teased for the upcoming seasons for Battlefield 6. This is a classic trope which is DICE known for since Battlefield 1. They are basically removing features which were previously in older titles at launch, then introducing them back with seasons and of course DLCs, and calling them quality of life updates. Just like Battlefield 1, the rant which I did a couple of years back.
Now I doubt what will be in the future of this franchise. Will they remove stationary vehicles only to be added later? How can you introduce new features in a game and later in sequels remove them? This is nonsense and illogical to me.
It's been quite a solid while. I was also ranting about this topic, cause they were removing features that were from even Battlefield 2. They were removing those and introducing them later back as new updates and quality of life improvements. So yeah, watercrafts are missing but are teased for basically I think season 4 or maybe later, cause already in the files there was found like a ripped boat, a classic since Battlefield 2. Which is weird, it's once again another game just like 2042 where water vehicles are missing. Only a couple games really have water vehicles missing, and from the top of my head it's 2142 because everything is just frozen there, 2042, which of course they didn't have time to make those, and now Battlefield 6. So once again 2 games in a row without water vehicles. But yeah, gameplay wise, gunplay is not good, the netcode with the hit registration sometimes doesn't work again. Even now in December, the netcode is still working, just barely hanging there. Sometimes you die behind walls, sometimes you die just to random nonsense. Maps honestly are very mediocre, just a couple of them are actually good, such as Cairo. Of course, Iberian Offensive, at first I was really despising it, but it was still playable. To some extent, maybe I'd say Manhattan Bridge, others are simply just forgettable and not interesting. Probably the worst map out of every single one out there is Blackwell Fields. This one is from this season and of course the Battle Pass, which was released, but more on that later. That has to be, I think, one of the worst maps I've ever played. It's basically designed with Battlefield 1 and 2042 in mind, just open playing fields where you simply go and perish to vehicles and camping soldiers. So to sum up everything about multiplayer, because honestly I do not want to stretch this any further, it's not good. Why was Battlefield Labs made in the first place? Everything was made there for testing purposes, only for the game to release and be in such an appalling state. HDR bugs, tons of exploit issues, the stairwell bug, of course the netcode not working, hit registration, soldier sprint, now it was actually kinda fixed and it now works fine. Just look how many issues I'm counting. The state Battlefield 6 was at launch, it was barely playable. Now it's somehow bearable, but still has tons of issues, especially with the netcode. Vehicles are still dogshit. I'm not going to talk about audio and footsteps problems. This thing got nominated for best sound design, yet you can't even hear enemies basically 2 meters away from you because there is a bug with Frostbite engine. Frostbite 4, thank you very much. Enemy footsteps are basically not working at all, so you can have like an enemy 2 meters behind you and you still couldn't hear him and you die because of that. Not even also going to delve into visibility because it's still a problem. Sometimes you can be prone and you are simply not viewable at all, just like some shorts I've seen online. And of course, invisible soldiers are also back, just like classic 2042 problem. The overall performance is also appalling, the PC is simply screaming and spewing out fire trying to run this title. Even at lowest settings, the video card is simply just being set ablaze, trying to render something in the main menu. And the graphics, I can't say they are very good. It actually looks sometimes worse than Battlefield 1, and that game was released, let's be real, about 10 years ago now. So somehow Battlefield 1 is actually looking better than Battlefield 6. Campaign is simply a wash, the graphics there are simply terrible, multiplayer is actually kinda decent but still they don't look good. And honestly, I'm actually kinda glad they didn't implement ray tracing because it's probably going to be a slideshow just like Battlefield V. So at least one positive thing out of the performance, they didn't introduce ray tracing and that saved us quite some performance. Now let's talk about Battle-Royale, which I was initially defending it first, but now I have to talk about this. So Battle-Royale in Battlefield 6 is called the RedSec, and it's honestly just mediocre and boring. Truth to be told, I was actually quite excited to see how they are going to do Battle-Royale for Battlefield 6. RedSec is simply boring. I know some of the people out there are really enjoying this one, but personally, after I had like a couple of games in it, it's not good. You can basically destroy choppers with a single magazine of RPK, which is just insanity. Choppers are supposed to be durable, yet with a single magazine you can destroy them. Vehicles are simply too overpowered sometimes in it. And unlike Battlefield V, where you actually needed 2 people to operate the vehicle properly, now you can just basically do solo everything on it. The assignments which are done there is using the UI. So for some reason the contracts are not physical objects that you need to fight for, so you can actually, go and fight for an actual vehicle. No, simply now you just click a button in UI and there the mission starts. The circle, honestly, I couldn't care less about it being one shot because it's moving so slow you can actually react in time and simply run away from it. The most common point I'd say is people just sitting near the circle so they can find, some prey and actually just destroy them so you can actually get, the loot easily for the players. Battlefield 6 tried to do it differently and it's not really working for me. So RedSec, I guess it's a Battle Royale which you can play, but it's honestly not for me. And of course, let's not forget they actually tried to force assignments on you on that one, because once the season 1 dropped and of course this was released, and again I'm going to enforce this, it should have released in 2026, not 2025. Because it's really rushed. Lots of things are missing, they even had some clipping issues in that thing. So yeah, they actually forced assignments in the battle pass for this thing, which is, let's say, very enforcing to see, please play this thing, please play it, do not stick just multiplayer. So it's already happening just like Call of Duty, when Warzone was released, they started doing assignments for it. It's kinda like this with RedSec, which is, let's say like this, quite disappointing. With RedSec out of the way, now let's talk about the content updates, which is of course Season 1 promised by DICE and of course Battlefield Studios. Right now, as of making this video, it's December, so we're basically close to the winter offensive thing. Basically the Empire State remained under winter. And let's be real about this, the Rugpulls does of quality of life improvements since the start of the Season 1. So how can you describe Season 1? It's basically a rug pull. It's honestly just a rug pull, because we just received a single map which was Blackwell Fields at first, and Blackwell Fields has to be the worst map of Battlefield 6 to have ever released. I believe it's going to remain also the worst map, because honestly it's just embarrassing how it's made. It's a classic Battlefield 1, Battlefield V and 2042 style, which is just simply an open field where you simply go and die. So it's vehicles, even though they are tin cans, so it's kinda basically a worst for everyone. And at launch you can basically just sit in the base and actually snipe enemy jets trying to deploy off the fields. So talk about going through a balancing pass and going through Battlefield Labs only for this thing to release and play like absolute dog shit. Also, another part of the rug pull is basically quality of life features that were really craved back at the launch period. Of course, the HDR bug fixes, the recoil fixes, all of those were missing when Season 1 dropped. And apparently they were debated and actually moved to the second part, which was of course Eastwood. Only with part 2 of Season 1 they actually managed to fix all of those problems related to HDR bug and of course the recoil. But once they fixed the recoil, the netcode started showing its ugly face, just dying behind walls, just being miserable. And of course the new game modes which were introduced were simply just boring. You had to do them just to complete some missions here and there. Eastwood, it's kinda decent, it kinda reminds me more like Battlefield Hardline plus Battlefield 1. Again, it's kinda similar to Ballroom Blitz with all of that big building from Battle-Royale. But everything else surrounding it, it's more like Hardline plus Battlefield 1 once again. 2 maps, only one is kinda decent, which is Eastwood. Blackwell Fields is absolute trash. Also, I'd like to talk about how once again they are bringing back old features as quality of life improvements, even though they are not really quality of life improvements. So they basically introduced pickup weapons from Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1 once again back here. So talk about a grounded setting when now we have a railgun available as a pickup kit. Yeah, I understand for Battlefield 4 because again it was kinda a tie-in to a 2142, but Battlefield 6 is supposed to be grounded, yet you have a railgun there? Quite some question marks. Now fast forward to December, now we are being promised that they are going to fix vehicles, they are going to fix the netcode and all of the classic stuff when it comes to DICE. Honestly, I believe vehicles are simply a bust, and if they are going to try to fix this, it's probably gonna take, I guess, minimum a year, try to nail the balance back, just trying to bring it back to Battlefield 4 level. I believe it should be done like this, Battlefield 4 gameplay with simply resupply stations, so when you run out of ammo, you just go to resupply, and you go forward. Cause right now they are simply tin cans and everyone is simply afraid to leave the spawn, and this creates, you know, the effect of just camping in the spawn trying to get kills. I believe another quality of life improvement should be just going over for the class balance. Assault is basically useless in this game. Honestly, there is no purpose to playing Assault on this one. The EpiPen, which basically attempts to heal you, doesn't really work, it just gives you adrenaline shot and you basically have 2 primaries, one is shotgun of course and the assault rifle. It's free of choice when it comes overall to picking that. But Assault is basically useless, you know, unlike Battlefield 4 where Assault had medbag, Support had ammo bag, on this one Support is basically simply too overpowered. It got both healing and of course ammo. So the best class out of all this game is simply just playing as Support. And why bother with everything else? Yeah, Engineer got its Engineer perk so you can repair vehicles, and Sniper of course got its own priorities when it comes to overall, you know, bolt action rifles. Assault is simply useless, why even bother using it when you got Support, Engineer and Recon, so only these 3 classes are very important. Assault can be forgotten. So I believe they should bring back the Battlefield 4 system again, split off the healing factor from Support, give it to Assault, and that will balance out everything. I believe that's how it should be done, cause again the way the classes are made in Battlefield 6 is simply a bust. Assault is useless. It only got like grenades, once again just like a Michael Bay kit from Battlefield 1. It only got explosives and the EpiPen with the crack. Let's say it like this. So Battlefield 6 support is going to be basically using legacy features of Battlefield and bringing them back into the modern era. Just like pickup weapons, which were a legacy feature found in Battlefield 1, now we are going to have Little Bird added back into it of course, and the water vehicles, and we are going to call it a revolution to Battlefield formula. So talk about Battlefield Labs being useful because we got tons of issues, vehicle balance is trash, class balance is trash, tons of broken promises overall when it comes to this thing. So let's transition now to the conclusion and why Battlefield 6 has defeated me. So what can I say about Battlefield 6? It has absolutely defeated me. The bugs, the problems, campaign being horrible, content support basically lacking. Honestly, it killed any hype I had for Battlefield 6. I know I will be destroyed for this video by basically everyone, cause again Battlefield 6 is very good, it's a return to form. But again, it doesn't really matter that it's a return to form where it has tons of problems, tons of issues, and the game being basically rushed. Battlefield 6 defeated me because it's basically a rushed game, its rushed state is like Battlefield 4 in 2014. Albeit it doesn't have any serious problems technical wise, of course the crashes and stuff like that where you destroy the building and the whole server crashes, it's not to such state, but it's barely playable at some points. Again, the netcode has issues, HDR bug, vehicles are just simply unbalanced, maps are uninspired, and I can pile up more and more. I understand I'll be absolutely destroyed for this cause again it's a return to form, but these are my own 2 cents as to why Battlefield 6 is honestly just a disappointing mess. Battlefield Labs was basically for nothing. Beta was actually much more stable than the retail version and of course the second beta. Second beta is really where the issues started growing very severe. The netcode had tons of problems. When they introduced that map it was basically revealing how the other maps are going to be. Of course I'm talking about Empire State. Firestorm is basically a remaster to have a tribute to older times like Battlefield 3 and 4. But that's basically it, like gameplay wise the classes are broken, vehicles are broken. Again, Battlefield Labs was basically made for nothing because the release state was simply appalling. Same thing with RedSec, they actually I think tested this one in Battlefield Labs but still was rushed out of the door with tons of issues related to clipping, graphical artifacts and stuff like that. Overall the whole performance for Frostbite 4 is simply appalling. Vehicles are missing, older features from Battlefields are being brought back as new quality of life improvements. Again, I'm seeing the same old story when it comes to Battlefield 1, although it's kinda a mix of Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1 had no content at launch and they started pulling back in older features to call it upgrades. And Battlefield 4, which was basically in an appalling state and they had basically 2 years to fix the game to a playable state. I believe Battlefield 6 should have released in 2026. I know it's sacrilegious to say this, but honestly, it's kinda like this. Battlefield 6 is simply a rushed mess. The campaign is not it needed about a year or so in the oven. The narrative is weak, the technical side is simply abhorrent. Same thing with multiplayer, again Battlefield Labs was basically for nothing. The whole package is simply rushed. I understood why they released it in 2025 because again the Grand Theft Auto 6 thingy is looming around and of course nobody wants to compete with that. But I'm going to reinforce this idea that Battlefield 6 should have released in 2026. It needed 1 more year in the oven for it to release in a much more playable state. But again, knowing DICE and Electronic Arts, that wouldn't happen. So here we are with this broken mess that simply destroyed me, just made me lose any interest and passion towards this game. I was really excited for Battlefield 6 and lo and behold here I am disappointed with this. Of course everyone else is enjoying it, but I want to highlight the facts, which are of course the game is simply in a horrible state. Battlefield Labs was just a marketing gimmick, just like I called in a previous live talk session which I had over on YouTube as a live stream. Battlefield Labs was basically damage control because again 2042 was simply abhorrent, Battlefield V was mediocre at best. And of course they had to somehow salvage the situation by announcing like here's a testing environment. Battlefield 4 CTE had a purpose, it was actually being updated real time so you could test new content which they were developing. Who knows what kind of content down the line we will receive. Is it going to be again just like Blackwell Fields where the map is simply unplayable trash? Or is it going to be Eastwood where it kinda has potential but it has tons of problems? Who knows really. Battlefield 6 has disappointed me. That's what can I say about it. It has tons of problems, it's a good game, but it's so filled with problems, honestly, just killed any hype and interest in me returning to it. So it's been like a couple of weeks now, I basically just quit the game and I'm still waiting for patches to finally return to it. Of course I'm not going to fall back to 2042, cause who is going to play that fucking garbage? I actually made even a final rant on it and I'm not going to touch the thing ever again. So that's how Battlefield 6 has defeated me. I honestly have no desire to return to it, vehicle gameplay is simply trash, Classes are unbalanced, netcode is not working, tons of problems, maps are mediocre. You can pile these on and on. And there are defenders that actually really enjoy this, but again, I'm going to highlight things as it is, because I was always authentic when it came to Battlefield 1, Battlefield V, 2042 as well. It's not it, Chief. It's not ready, it wasn't ready for release in 2025, and I believe it should have released in 2026. So it would have been a full package including water vehicles, little birds, the scout choppers, vehicle balance being fixed properly, and of course the Battle-Royale being at launch with Battlefield 6. Instead we got this Frankenstein mess, having the campaign absolutely, let's say, a boring, unplayable mess. The multiplayer is broken, RedSec is also kinda broken, and the season content, which is under questions now. I hope you enjoyed this video, boys. I hope you understand why I didn't actually want to continue to make much content about Battlefield 6, cause it simply just disappointed me. 3 days of actually enjoying it and everything else is just misery upon misery with tons of problems, tons of issues, and basically clicking Alt F4 every single time I found some nonsense happening in my game. It's simply not it, Chief. If you share some of these gripes which I have with Battlefield 6, let me know down in the comments below. I'm interested to know what you think about the Battlefield 6 state in general. The launch, multiplayer support, campaign, anything that goes by, please let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to throw a thumbs up, and if you didn't, there's a dislike button nearby. Don't forget to click the subscribe button so you can see more content from me. I don't think I'll post much about Battlefield 6, but I'll try my best to actually do some coverage on it. But again, since I've been burned out by the whole of these problems, I don't really guarantee that I'll do much about it. So yeah, this is it, me defeated by Battlefield 6. Thank you everyone for tuning in, this was Chris, seeing the game is out.